Hello again, I'm going to do the next piece. Let's see how this goes. Sorry if there's noise back from the last one. I hope you guys could hear me okay. If you didn't, you can let me know. Alright, bye. Let's see how this one is. Day 3, Part 3. Lance was the first to wake up. This left him with his thoughts. Those thoughts being of Keith and how strange he'd been acting. The guy had been so easy triggered emotionally, which was strange to Lance. He was to comfort Keith about what was up with him. He also had to think that kiss Keith gave him. He didn't mean to hurt Keith with his reaction. He was just surprised and still a little bit tied up with thinking about other things like his family. Don't get Lance wrong. Keith was attractive and had an alright personality from what Lance has seen from him. Lance had become to terms with his bisexuality a few years ago, yet he always believed he'd lean more towards women. Keith was making him question that. Especially Keith at the moment, being an adorable little shit. He felt Keith being stirred. This snapped him out of his thoughts. He watched Keith yawn. Which was adorable, as anyways, and started to speak about the kiss. Keith flinched like he had before they slept. I'm not mad about it. It's fine. And you need to stop beating yourself up about it. Keith tried to protest. Shh, I know you have been. You nearly cried yourself to sleep. Keith looked away. Why are you being so emotional at the moment? It's really concerning, Lance asked. Keith looked at him. I don't know. Possibly because I feel safe around you. I don't know, you won't judge me. Keith trailed off. Lance gasped at Keith. He looked so vulnerable, so frail. You're right, I won't judge you. I'm here for you. If you need anything, Keith. Lance started, then wrapped his arms around Keith. Keith lay on Lance for a beat before snuggling into Lance's embrace, as his arms were trapped precisely him from into a warm hug, I'm going to say. Day 4, Part 1. Keith woke in a Vic-like grip. His arms were trapped to his side, and his brain was going into overdrive. Sorry. As the room was too dark for him to see what was resting on him. That was until he smelt a familiar smell. Lance. Keith breathed out a shaky breath as he started to relax again. It's only Lance. You're safe, he told himself, as he breathing, which he had now just realised was heavy, studying itself. Keith said to the room for a light to turn on the dim, and looked up at Lance sleeping peacefully. God, he's adorable when he sleeps, yet hot at the same time. Keith let out an humming sound which started Lance's wake. "Hey, gorgeous," Lance said, his voice rough from sleep, winking at Keith, causing the face turn bright pink, and both of them to burst out laughing. "God, you're a dork," Keith muttered, as he climbed out of bed. His feet touched the floor, making him jump back into Lance's warmth, welcoming arms. "Forget it, it's freezing, didn't you?" Lance teased, Keith moaning sheepishly. "I'm going to get up and pick you up with the duvet, covering both of us, and we'll head to breakfast, okay?" "Okay," Keith cheerfully agreed, staged at he was so chipper after he just woke up. 1, 2, Lance counted, as he hurried Keith in his arms. Later, as legs wrapped around his waist and pulled the blanket around them, both, and he was lifted at the count of 3. Lance carefully made his way out his room towards the dining area. "Hey, guys," Pidge said groggily, walking from the foundation from the two, her own blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "How did you sleep?" She winked at Lance. Keith was obvious, as he was drifting off again on Lance's shoulder, furthering from Pidge. "You asked that the other morning as well, and apart from this one being a ball of angst, all fine," Lance said. Sorry, what does that say, guys? Sorry, I can't read what it says. Don't know what you guys were trying to say there. Sorry. Where was I? Oh, so you asked that the other morning as well. Apart from this one being was fine. Lance then triply said, annoyed. "Also, his purrs are adorable as hell." "It's too early for this much gay," Pidge mumbled, as they made their way into the dining area, sitting down. Lance tried to pry Keith out of his arms, but Keith was like a koala. So he gave up and just had him sit in his lap. It was easier. Day 4. Part 2. Slowly, the rest of the team filled in, each giving Keith and Lance their own special looks. Shiro seemed tired and unfazed by them. Alora was trying to hide her smile. Hunk was just confused and a little bit hopeful. Cran was just beaming at the two. So how did everyone sleep? Anyone cold? Shira asked, looking at Keith wrapped around Lance. There was an overall greeted that they slept good, and there was no need for them to try and find any more blankets they could. Keith mumbled, I slept amazingly. I was so warm because of this human heater. Everyone looked at Keith, and I got to hear the morning voice was perfect. And he sighed, obviously still half awake and drowsy. Regardless, Keith not realizing what he had said, Lance still turned red. His arm squeezed Keith closer to his chest. This resulted in Keith snuggling closer. Keith? Lance stripped towards Keith's ear. You need to eat. But Keith shook his head. His hair tickled Lance's cheek, making him giggle a little. That was adorable, Keith said, drifting back to sleep, even though he didn't sleep a lot recently. Lance huffed and looked up at the group. He's been sleeping a lot lately. I think it might be the cold or something, because we can't really do much. He carefully stood up. Keith still clung to him with his legs like vice on Lance's hips. I'm going to head back to my room with him. Lance then picked up Keith's plate of space goo and dumped it onto his half-eaten plate and carried it out with him. So, Pidge started, as the door shut behind Lance. When do you think they're going to admit that they like each other? She asked the others. Hunk looked at her. Well, I'd say no time soon. This earned a look of disapproval from both Pidge and Alora. What? I mean, I know they like each other. I just think it will happen long after this week, though, she said, shrugging. Well, I think they'll confess before this week ends, and there'll be like at least half a day awkwardness because they don't know what they're doing, Pidge said, challenging. Pidge challenging. Hunk. How about we bet? She persuaded. His eyes sparkled. She knew she was right, and she had her eye on coming part of upgrading her laptop. Yeah, Hunk responded. I'll bet on it. Pidge beamed. Okay, if I win, you owe me 200 GAC. She held her hand out to shake. And if I win, you have to buy me any ingredients I want for the next 2 months, Hunk said. He looked at Pidge's hand and shook it across the table. Are we really betting on Keith and Lance? Shira asked. I mean, they're both emotional compatible. Neither of you will win. That was all Shira said before leaving. He obviously not slept much that night. The reason for that was because Alora trying to get him to help her with her plan to get Keith and Lance together. The lack of sleep had unfazed the princess, though. Well, I agree with Pidge on this, Alora pitched in. I mean, they are already making progress. She clapped her hands like she did when she announced the two would be sharing a bed and left the dining area. Cram followed her wrist, saying, I agree with number 5. Oh, on this, sorry. He twirled with mustache. Well, buddy, Pidge turned to Hunk. It seems like that I'm going to win if everyone. By Shiro, but oh well. Agree with me? Pidge laughed, and in mock evil laugh. Yeah, Pidge, but I think I know my best friend, Hunk defended. At least he thought he knew his best friend. He'd be happy as long as Lance is happy, even if that meant that he'd lose 200 GAC. Both Hunk and Pidge left the dining area to go work on their little project, a movie or projector. Lance was sitting on his bed, Keith still snuggled up in his arms, eating his food, and thinking about Keith. It was nothing new at that moment, as he spent most of his waking hour with him, and now sleeping hour too. Lance couldn't deny that he was in love with Keith. Yeah, it seemed so much sudden, but he'd only realised what seemed like a month ago. He'd been huge as a crush on Keith for years at the garrison, but never acted upon it. Keith never seemed to acknowledge him, but he was very certain that Keith also liked him. Not love. Yet. From Lance's point of view, it now seemed clearly obvious that Keith had a crush on him. The guy was snuggling up to him and being awfully sweet to him at the moment. Lance was 90% sure Keith liked him, and he was going to do something about it. Day 4, Part 3. Keith gripped on Lance tightly as he came back to land of the living. He bruised his face further into Lance, which spun on the thought in Lance's head, which he voiced out loud. Adorable. Keith had snapped up at that comment and gave Lance a glare, wished with a blushing, which knocked the effect of said glare down a few pegs. I'm not adorable, Keith muttered. You are. Lance just looked at Keith. Adoration for the boy. Very pleasant. Glad you think that, cutie. Lance responded with a wink. This just made Keith pout and look away. So Keith, Lance started, wanting to get straight to the issue he was previously thinking about. I want to ask you something. Keith nodded. Sure, go ahead. Lance smiled softly and took a deep breath, in and out. I like you, and I was wondering if you'd possibly be my boyfriend. Keith just looked at him blankly as his heart started to rush, as heat started to rush to his face. You're not messing with me, are you? Keith wanted to check before he replied. Shocked, Lance replied. What? Why would I? Who would? No, I'm not messing with you. Lance finally got out. Then, yes, Keith said excitedly, then changed his face to a serious expression with the tone that matched. I mean, of course, I would love to be your boyfriend, Lance. It would be my pleasure. The change in the tone made Lance burst out laughing, his head thrown back. God, you're beautiful, Keith said, making Lance turn to snap his head towards Keith. Only his face turned bright red. So, are you? Lance stuttered. Keith quickly strode forward and kissed his cheek gently. Thank you, boyfriend. Keith stretched and stressed the boyfriend, which made them both blush and fall into another in the fit of laughter. Keith's stomach suddenly growled. Shit, he cursed. I forgot to eat. I was so comfy and warm. Damn it. Lance turned to reach down next to his bed and received the plate of space goo he hadn't finished. I knew you'd be hungry. When I woke up, I've bought you some. Lance smiled and gave Keith the plate. Thank you so much, Keith said, grabbed the plate and started wolfing goo down, ignoring the taste, as he was so hungry. The picture. Okay, last one. Day 4, Part 4. Keith hurried happily as he ate the goo Lance had kindly saved for him. Wissing said the boy was patting his head. He wasn't an animal, but he had to admit it was comforting. Lance, on the other hand, was going through all the thoughts in his head. Still disbelief that Keith was now his boyfriend. He hadn't originally wanted Keith, but he knew that he needed him. He needed Keith and his mess and his challenging nature, but also Keith's sweet side. Basically, Keith was what he needed because he would treasure Lance and vice versa. So, when are we going to tell the team? Keith turned to Lance after he finished his food. I'm not sure, Lance replied, making Keith turn his head slightly to the other side. We could tell them later, or tomorrow, if you want, I'm not really bothered about it. Keith smiled at Lance. I like that. Today, maybe? Lance smiled back. How did you like to do it? Gather everyone in the lounge and kiss each other? Kiss each other? Or something? Keith jumped at Lance, their foreheads now touching. Could we? He asked excitedly, quietly, out of character. If Lance was honest, so brought it up. Were you cheesy and clingy all of a sudden? He asked. Keith shrugged out. Didn't let go of Lance. I don't know. You're really, really cozy and warm, and you make me happy. Problem? No problem there. It's just slightly concerning that you're not at my throat or something, Lance said playfully. Keith moved his head down to the crook of Lance's neck and purred. I could be if you wanted, he asked cheekily. Lance gripped at him. Maybe another time, Keith. He stuffed out. Keith nuzzled at his neck. Okay, Lance. Complete the content. So we're going to make everyone meet in the lounge and kiss in front of the team to come out about our relationship? Lance asked Keith, who was nuzzling his neck and got agreement. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. I hope that was okay for you guys. Anyway, so yeah. Have a nice day.